Okay, let's get ready to paint. Let's see. Just a couple more seconds. Welcome everybody to my studio. My name is Michael Markowsky, and today we're going to make another painting. This time one suggested by viewers like yourselves. We are going to make a painting about a volcano that is currently exploding, erupting on the big island of Hawaii. So, are you ready to make a glowing, warm, hot painting? I am. So, let's get right to it. The first thing, I've got a blank canvas. Oh, a little bit out of focus there on the camera. That's okay, because we will start painting pretty quickly anyway. So, the first thing I'm going to suggest you do, while I get that camera focused shortly, is to go to the Dropbox. And if you click, there's a link down right in the video description below to the Dropbox. You can click in there, and let's say we click here, you'll see these files, and one of them is the original photo by G.E. Ulrich from the U.S. Geological Society, or Survey, sorry, and there's the tracing of it that I also did. So if you want to use the tracing to transfer your image onto the canvas, then you can download that, print it out. There's a PDF and a JPEG version of this image, right? So I'm gonna transfer that onto some canvas. The way that I do that is I use some of this carbon paper. So I'm going to take some carbon paper, and it comes in a package like that, and you'll see inside there's these sheets just like this. I've also done this a few other different ways using, if you just take a pencil and you rub it all over onto the back side, you can easily transfer that onto here. So let's get some tape. This is a pretty straightforward image. You wouldn't really need to do this, but since my printer wasn't working yesterday because I updated my operating system and had to download new drivers and spent a little while trying to get it to work, I'm going to take full advantage of the opportunity. So I just put the drawing on top, the carbon paper between that and the canvas. And just going to trace this out. Right, there's the original. How much of this is really important? This is just really just so that I'm kind of have some idea of where the composition is, and I don't have to think too much about the drawing aspect of this painting. I can just start painting it. All right, let's take a look at that. Now, you can see part of it was kind of light, and I suspect that's because I've used this sheet for two other images so far. So if there's some places where you're going over the same lines over and over again, then of course there's not going to be any charcoal or graphite to transfer onto your paper. So That's why the image might not show up very well. But as I said, I'm not too concerned because this is not quite as complex as the one we did just a few hours ago when we were painting the Mars rover. Let me see, this is the one we did earlier today. And I'm going to leave that up here for a second while I focus the camera. Okay, let me see. Is that better? Okay. There we are. Okay. So there's the earlier painting. That was a fun one to do. Quite a big moment in human history, seeing that rover touch down on Earth, and so now we're doing another one that is about stuff that's happening right now. And the fun thing I think about doing this type of exercise is, rather than using images by artists who living or dead, is that we're trying to make original paintings. Now, of course, we're going to make an image based on a photograph, but that's probably how a lot of you are eventually. That's how you want to make art, maybe potentially eventually. I mean, some of you are going to create artwork purely from your imagination, and that's fantastic. And some of you, take pictures of birds and family members, photos from your vacations and trips and places around your neighborhood, your house, your pets, etc. Still lives that you create. And one of the most common ways that artists create those paintings is based on photographs. So how do we translate a photograph, in this case this volcano in Hawaii erupting, into an original painting? So it's a similar kind of process as to how we've looked at creating paintings by Matisse or Frida Kahlo or Mary Pratt, etc. Is we want to try to use our eyes to look at the painting and kind of decode the colors that are there, and then using everything that we've learned in that 45 episode long painting class that we just finished, right? And if you're tuning in for the first time, you're like, what? We did it. We just finished back in September. We started, and in February we ended, and I kind of went through all the different kinds of basic exercises and techniques that an acrylic painter might want to know. And so, having all that knowledge, what can we bring towards this image that we can then translate into a painting? So there's so many different ways of doing this. And I always just want to make it clear that I'm trying to, as best as possible, to show you all the different ways to approach a painting. But then, of course, I also have my own biases and habits, things that come most naturally to me, and that doesn't mean that it's going to be the best way for you to do it, or that it's going to be the most pleasurable, enjoyable, most intuitive way for you to express yourself. So by all means, I think it's really helpful to also watch videos by other people and to read books by other artists. Anyway, so let's now look at this photograph. Obviously, the lava spewing from the mouth of this volcano is the brightest part, right? So my instinct would be to paint something, a very bright white, and probably a cool white, right? Something that gets that really, really like lemon yellow color that we see, not even this color, but the one with a lot of white inside. So let's do a wash of that over top of this entire painting, and then we're going to start adding extra color on top of it. Okay. So, I've also decided I'm going to try to condense all my art supplies just into a shoebox as well. It was a little ungainly. I'm slowly organizing my studio. So a few things here that I have in here. In the previous episode, we did some glaze for the background. So I think rather than using glazing for the background, I'm going to use some slow dry medium potentially for this painting instead. So just a slightly different approach than the painting we did just a few hours ago. And of course, these are the exact same thing, just different. The slow dry medium versus retarder. I'm almost out of that golden, and I'm not a big fan of the title, how they've, I just don't think. Anyway, let's get our materials out, and that should be everything that we need. I have a few rags there still left over from this morning. The other thing, I'm just going to give this a quick sand. Now, I usually do this before I draw any outline on there, but it doesn't really matter. Okay. So here's our palette. All right, we've got warm yellow, warm red, warm blue, and cool yellow, going all the way around the color wheel. So let's add our colors into here. And I'm not sure how much of this warm yellow I'm going to put on there, or in this painting, but I'm going to include it anyway. Because, I think, I'm going to use it for the lava flowing down the side of the volcano. I do have lots of links in the video description, which we're going to look at closely here. I just want to get the painting started. We can talk a little bit more about this volcano. Okay. And we're going to use a little bit of white as well. We will use a little bit of black, although I'm going to suggest we try to do a lot of it just mixing colors together rather than just diving into the black. So we'll use that when we get to it. So let's grab a brush. This is the brush I've been using for the blending, and it is, I think I should just throw it out because it caused me a bunch of headaches this morning when I was painting the Mars rover. Just kind of, some brushes, especially cheap brushes, as you use them, they either the hairs literally come out from inside this metal tube, the ferrule. But the other thing too that can happen is these hairs, they're like, this is plastic really, so they break, right, as they get kind of worn, and it looks like, if we look at this one, there's all these tiny little hairs that of different sizes that came off in the paint. And when that happens, you're kind of a little bit out of luck. I mean, it's really hard to kind of scrape all those things out. If anything, I just would leave them rather than trying to pick all them out, even though you've seen me many times try to do it again. Okay, so let's take our cool yellow, and we're going to just cover the whole canvas here. And then we're going to put some purple and red over top. So, you get a little bit of white on there. We're going to use a bunch of water as well. Okay, might as well scoop up the rest of this white. So this, kind of reminds me, the closest thing to what we're about to do is, oddly enough, the Thomas Kincaid painting, where we had that glowing light coming from inside the house, if you recall that one. We did that on, what, was it Christmas? No, not Christmas Eve, it was a couple days before Christmas, I think. We made that painting. And we did something similar where we created a canvas that was all one color, I think. I'm trying. Okay. And then we're going to blast this well, we'll let it dry and we'll see. One thing, when we use water on here, it does help it dry much faster, right? Because we've kind of thinned the paint out, and that water is going to really help all of that, the binder in there. We've spread it quite thin, so it'll dry much faster. Yeah, so I know some people might be a little surprised. I did do sort of a spontaneous, wasn't super spontaneous. I was thinking about it last night. I was like, okay, the two highest voted paint the news stories were the Mars rover landing on Mars and this volcano erupting in Hawaii. Which one should we do? And I was just like, why don't we do the actual Mars rover landing while it's actually landing? So I was like, let's do that. So I kind of announced it pretty late. So, but of course it's all recorded there. You can watch it again and skip ahead as you like, if you want. So let's, I'm gonna blow, well, let's just see how things go, and I'll take a look at some of the images here. So of course here's the Facebook page for our group. I did ask earlier, what artists would you like us to paint going forward? I have a list of hundreds of artists that I'd like to do, but if there's some that people have a particular eagerness to focus on, then we can certainly add those a little bit higher to move them up on the list, so we can, so it's most useful for you guys, right? So. Of course, you can write that in the chat for this video right now, but I would encourage you to also use the Facebook there, because it's a little easier for me organizational-wise to look at that. So let's just sort of, here's the actual photo that we're going to be painting today. Now you'll notice this is a bit of an older, 2-3 year photo, 3-year-old photograph. And actually, I think this photo is even older than that, to be quite honest. But it is of this volcano. So it's not like I just chose some random volcano photograph. It is this particular volcano, which has been erupting for hundreds of years. So it's not like this is a brand new thing. It's just that, let's see, there's some obviously amazing images here on the web. I want to find, okay, so This I think is kind of cool. So this was, you could see this was this lake inside of the crater Halimau crater. I probably completely butchered that. But that's the crater inside of the volcano. And this is what it looked like on December 20th, right? There was a big lake in the middle. That's a pretty big lake. It doesn't look that big from here, but this is also a huge volcano. And then, just over a period of a few days, look what happened to that lake. The lake instantly evaporated as all this lava, I guess I can't roll over, started pouring in from the sides and probably a little bit from below. And did it show? And so this is what inside this volcano looks like. You have all of this lava lake, and then these crusty parts floating on top where the lava has already hardened, or other materials that are on top of it. But this is not a lake that you would want to go swimming in. This is a very, very hot place. Probably one of the hottest places on Earth right now, which for those of us stuck in Canada, we'd be almost tempted to go into that lake. Okay, so let me see. Is there any other cool things here? Like, obviously, great opportunities to take some photographs if you were in that area, and you can. There's still some areas where you can get close to it. It's not ejecting these giant rocks and spewing lava like the painting we're looking at right now. There are some big bubbles popping up, and I'm not going to play these videos because this video might get shut down. But this is one a clip here, and again, this is in the video description below, where you can see the lava bubbling out here, and that's how, I think it's actually even a live view of the inside of that volcano. Okay, so back to the matter at hand. This needs a little bit of hot air just to get it ready to go. Okay. I just love touching canvases. I love just rubbing the surface. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we got to figure out how to get some of these colors on here. So I'm going to save the bottom of the mountain, the black part, until the very, very, very end. So what we have basically three things that we want to think about painting here. This red smoke, I think, this looks like, it's probably not red, it was probably gray or brown or something, but it's the light and the heat from the volcano is reflecting off of it, making it look red. And then I think the purple is the actual background. So we'll paint kind of a red cloud and a purple background, and then this is going to be where our spewing volcano is coming from. So we'll probably end up, if my strategy for painting it is we'll paint the purple, and then we'll paint the red, the clouds, and then we will paint the lava, and then we'll paint the black silhouette of that form fourth, if you want to think of those as steps. Okay, so the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to use the slow dry medium, and so let's make a purple to begin with. So the best way to make a really nice vibrant purple is using cool red and warm blue, right? Just as a purple is one of those elusive colors on the color wheel, and we talked about this way back in September in one of the very first episodes we did, because often if you're using if you're using warm red and cool blue, and you try to mix those together, you're going to get a brown. And people often, when people go to the art supply stores, they buy one yellow, one red, one blue, and they mix those together and they get this brown color, and they can't figure out what's wrong. So that's why we're going to use the cool red or a magenta and a warm blue like ultramarine blue. And when we mix those together, they're much closer to each other on the color wheel, so they're not crisscrossing through or near the neutral core, right? So I know that what I would hope is that stuff starts to become really obvious to those of you that have been with me for 4 months or so. That you're like, oh yeah, old news. That's great. That makes me really excited if you feel like I'm repeating myself, because that means that you're really understanding things. The other thing, and I was just thinking about this as before we started filming, is that you guys have also the benefit of watching me do it right or potentially doing it wrong, and then you're gonna be like, oh, I was thinking like somebody skiing. It's been decades since I skied, but if I used to go down the really hard, like the black diamonds and stuff, and you'd kind of watch one person go, and you're like, oh, that's a bad route to go. Okay. Oh, here's another person. Oh, that worked. So you kind of have the benefit of watching me go off the cliff first, and then you can be like, huh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go a slightly different way to get to the bottom of the hill. Let's mix this paint. So let's take some of the cool red. Let's take some of our warm blue. We mix these together. We're going to get a nice dark purple. Now, one thing to think about is if I paint this purple right directly onto this yellow, it's going to mix optically as opposed to mixing pigment to pigment. So it's going to mix optically with this yellow, and it could turn this purple a little bit bluish. So there's a few different ways that we can counteract that. We could add some white into this. But of course, adding white is going to tint it and make it a little bit less intense, which is not too far off of the color that we're looking at here on the screen, right? We're going to want to add a little bit of white anyway. You could also really add a lot of paint here. So we're going to kind of do a little bit of both. We're going to have a lot more paint that we're going to paint with. And I tend to be a bit of a thin painter. I tend not to paint like big gobs of paint. It's just my personal approach to painting. I like a lot of the layers to show through, and maybe I'm also a bit impatient, and thick paint takes a while to dry. Okay, so here's that. Now we're going to add a little bit of white into this. So we don't need too much either. It's going to white, just like black, does a pretty good job of making some changes happen pretty darn quick. Okay, and you can see that's, if I get this close here, that's pretty darn close to the actual color. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit of the slow dry medium. So almost, I guess that's almost 1-to-1, a little bit more paint to slow dry medium. This is just going to help me brush it around, and if I make any mistakes, I can wipe things away. Not that there's that many opportunities to make mistakes on this painting anyway, but just work it in here really well. If I was painting on just like glass, this would be a great thing to use a palette knife for. Okay. So let's spread this out all over this canvas here. Now the explosion kind of happens right around in here. Okay. Now we are going to, even though I've left some of this, you know, you can do whatever kind of patterning in here you want. I am going to paint over this over and over again with more white later on. So I'm just looking at the photograph and thinking, where else can I add this purple? You know, this is not exactly what's in the photograph, but it doesn't hurt just to have give myself a few options here. Of just some of the background kind of shining through. There. I could go purple to purple all over there, but one thing is the more that you layer colors, the more opaque it's going to be, and potentially the more colors that are layered there, there's the potential for things to get a little bit muddy. So just be kind of a little bit conscious of how much layering you're actually doing there. Okay. So I'm just going to now just, as it's starting to dry, just brush that out. Okay, so let's hit this with some air. So I'm gonna use the same color again in a minute, but what I am gonna do is I'm gonna mix some warm red as well, so we have a couple of different colors that we can do a little bit of blending with. And I'm going to save one brush here for blending the actual colors afterwards, so this will stay dry. So let's get, I think this should be dry, so let's, so here's just some slow dry medium and some red. Let's just take that together. Let's get a little bit more of it. Okay, do a little bit of blending of these paints here. So I've got that purple still ready to go. So let's go over the purple a second time. Covers up a bit more of that yellow, not entirely, but I don't think I really want it to be completely obliterated. I kind of like a little bit of it showing through, so I'm just gonna I'm not going to bother going over top of those spaces, because I'm going to put red all over this. We got a little bit of paint mixing, not a lot, but so now I'm just going back in here with the purple. Once we can kind of blend a little bit of that back in. Okay. We'll hit this with some hot air. Actually, you know what, before I even do that, I'm going to take this same red. Let's put some of it down in here. This is going to be where the lava is coming through. In fact, you know what, I'm just going to paint a bunch of this down here. Since we're gonna paint over it anyway. And if you want some lava kind of going a little bit further, you can make these streams come down higher, right? Take some artistic license. Okay. Maybe just... It's always kind of recommended that if you're going to... that your brushstroke should kind of try to follow the form, right? So that that rather than kind of going this way, that they're kind of coming down that way. Okay. So the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to start darkening in the sky a little bit. I'm going to put some darker color into the volcano, or the clouds up here. Or I guess not clouds, but smoke, or however you want to think about it. So we can take the same purple that we had here from before. All right. I'm just going to add more blue to the mixture. And it already starts getting darker, right? This is just the ultramarine blue. squeeze some of that off. And it's going to take, actually I'm going to go a little bit smaller even. So I'm going to take this color and let's kind of draw some clouds shapes on here. So I'm just kind of squiggling some lines around. Got a bit down here too. Now you could take a brush and kind of soften this up. In fact, I should put a little bit, maybe more slow dry medium in here to facilitate that. We can take this and kind of just gently kind of scrub things around. So this blending brush just kind of smooths out some of the hard edges. And obviously it really helps to be using the slow dry medium to do this type of stuff. Alright, now we're going to get darker in here. That's why I haven't really done too much of that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some of the cool blue into this mixture. All right, and that color is going to change. And let's again put a little more. I think this slow dry medium's almost out. Get an opportunity to use the Liquitex brand. Stir that up. All right, and I can just blend a bit of this in. All right, so now my blending brush, see it's starting to, it's been used pretty well, right? There's a lot of paint on there, so once it gets to that point, it's no longer helping you, it's starting to kind of get in your way. So you want to dry that off. And let's, you know what, I can also apply some of this same color into the red up here too. So really, you see a lot of this kind of crazy paintbrush movement. Really what I just want is I want to try to avoid straight lines. I just want this to be, smoke is a pretty chaotic kind of material, right? So, okay, so I'm going to heat this up, and then we're going to get a little bit darker on here, maybe a little bit up there as well. Thank you for the comments about the sound volume. I've been turning the volume down while I've been using the hair dryer so that you're not blasted with the sound of my hair dryer, and then I forgot to turn it back up. So my apologies for that. I'm not sure how much I missed there, but okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on the cloud part, or the smoke that's being illuminated, this red smoky area. Thank you, love. Oh, cool. So brushes off. Might as well just clean a bunch of brushes. Cleaning paintbrushes is always a bit of a pain in the butt, and it seems kind of take away from the flow of the painting process. But it's also kind of, you know, I guess the other option would be you could just have hundreds of brushes. I do think it's kind of nice to wash your brushes while you're painting. It offers a little bit of a break to let the paint dry a little bit, and to kind of take a breath and look and evaluate the things. And so, I mean, I've worked for artists, and while they're painting, you know, they put a paintbrush down, and I'm cleaning the paintbrush, and they're working. So I've been kind of like that, you know, surgeon's assistant, you know, where they're like, scalpel, and you're like, round brush, and they're clean this. So I've worked for artists while they're painting and doing that kind of thing. I personally, and I've had assistants, I've hired people to help me do things. I don't know if, I'm not that kind of an artist. I like having a bit of a break in the process. I also really like washing the dishes. Right? In our family, I wash all the dishes, and I'm kind of militant about it. Whenever my wife washes the dishes, I get upset because it's like my thing. I like doing it. So maybe it's just a personality thing, but anyway. Speaking of taking a quick little break, I have my tea. I'm not sponsored by anybody, but if I get sponsored, tea would probably be the thing that I would want to sponsor me, because I love tea. So now, see, we're getting pretty close here. I like what's happening on this side. I think that's pretty much done. I'm gonna now do just this white in the clouds, and then we'll start doing the lava flowing down. So we're actually, I'd say we're about 60% done, I would say, at this point. Right, we're moving at a good pace. Now, every time I start saying that, I think that we're close to being done. You can just add an extra hour onto things. So it's like if you're playing at home a drinking game, and you're like, oh no, he says he's almost done. Means we're going to be here for a lot longer than expected. Okay. So I've got this red. That's that slow dry medium I'm putting on there. Give it a good little stir. And I'm going to just kind of come back over top of a bunch of this here. Add a little bit of red back into it. Maybe not everywhere. Okay, and then I'm just going to blend some of this back out. So I'm sort of like I'm blending it into the darker area, kind of like a glaze, right? Ooh, that's nice. So... I am going to use the hairdryer again just to dry all that back. So let's add, so we've got this, so we got this warm red. Let's add a little bit of, we're gonna make it a bit orangey, I think. Yeah, let's put a little bit of orange. So I'm gonna take the warm yellow. I'll just mix this off to the side here. Let's scoop a little bit of paint in here. And we'll do the same thing. I'm just gonna go into now, I kind of like how that looks as it is. I am just going to give a little bit of blending to it. Just soften it up. But you don't have to blend. You know, one of the things I do think sometimes blending is way overrated, and people spend way too much time trying to blend colors. If for particular kinds of painting it works well, but I think sometimes people overdo it, and it actually can make things look a little actually worse. In fact, while that's drying, I'm going to come back with some of this darker paint and blend a bit into here. Ooh, that's good. I like that. Now, do I want to add more any white in here. Maybe a little bit. I'm going to, again, blow dry this. I'm liking the way this looks right now. So part of me thinks that what might be best would be to do the lava and start doing some of the spray up here, and then decide if I want more definition in here. So maybe a little bit of, might add a little bit. We'll heat this up. We'll do one more layer, and then I think we'll move on. Okay, so where are we? Let's come back here. We got all these miscellaneous brushes. Okay, so let's do one. Let's get just a bunch of more yellow on here. I don't know if I want to add too much white at all, really, to be frank. Let's put a bit of slow dry medium in there. Don't need much of it because we're not going to use much anyway. And so just, these are just kind of like little highlights. Kind of a William Turner thing going on here. Okay. So now I'm going to actually take this same color that I've got, add a little maybe more yellow to it, and I'm just going to go back over this area here. Can you hear me? You should be able to hear me. Saying they can't hear my voice, no sound. Hello, hello? All right, still here. Hello. but I appreciate the comments about that. I'm not sure. Hopefully, it's not a glitch like we had a few weeks last week or so. Okay, so let's now. Still can't hear my voice, hey Paige? Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is let's I'm going to start adding some little bits of white in here. So I'm going to kind of think about where the lava is going to be flowing from, adding just a little bit of I don't even know if all of this is going to be visible, but I'm just so potentially this is going to end up being like really bright yellow on top of some of these spaces. In fact, I'll go back over it with some white. I'm not doing going over every little thing. I'm also going to take this, get a bit of white in the very center. Wasn't too happy with what I just did there. I could wipe it away, but it'll be okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is start adding kind of like the spitting little bits of droplets of lava coming out of here. I'm just gently going over some of the existing color that was there. In fact, I don't really need. I'm just going to wipe off some of this inside. So I'm just painting white and cool yellow. And in fact, I'm going to use my smallest brush for some of this here. Very small little brush. Just because I want to make little tiny spots all over. I like this idea of this kind of spray that's kind of going up into the air there. You can use your imagination and you can make the volcano doing whatever you want. It could be spelling a name or a word or something on there. The one thing I would suggest is, as you're doing this, is to move around. Don't do it all in one little place. Like, otherwise you're going to get a very you want it to look random, I guess, is ultimately. So it's almost like you got to shut your brain off a little bit while you're doing some of this, and try not to direct things so much. You gotta sort of just put them in a few different places, and then you evaluate, am I doing it right? You know, it just occurred to me, I wonder if sometimes people are watching the video at different times. So if somebody is watching live versus somebody who's watching maybe 20 minutes ago, if they leave comments, I think they appear at the same time. So that could explain potentially why some people say that the sound isn't working, because the sound wasn't working a little while ago and then now it is. So maybe that's possible that they're experiencing what we all experienced a little while back. Okay. You know, as I'm looking at this, I see there are some red spots in behind, and maybe it would have been a good idea for me to have done that. So I'm going to take some red, and I'm going to add some white to it as well. There's kind of this little bit of a red halo, so I'm just going to gently kind of give this like a bit of a little reddish halo around some of it's kind of nice. Right, so that little bit of red is going to help give it a even more of a glow. So this is like a pink that I'm putting on here. All right, and then I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to actually go back to the red. And I've just got red on my brush now. And I'm going to put this into just a few select. Okay. Let me see. I think the next thing I'm going to do, we're going to add some yellow, straightforward, cool yellow, right out of the tube. And I'm going to start adding this to some of the kind of outer edges here. And we're going to keep this. In fact, we're going to get to white in the middle. See how that? Now it seems to be sort of almost radiating light. Okay, now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to take some white, and basically just white on its own. In fact, I'm going to clean this brush off, and I'm just going to use just pure white right out of the tube. So I got a little bit of white right here. So let's just take that. That's going to make it look like just white hot. Might have been a bit too much. We'll see. We can always tone it down. Okay. Maybe while I'm right here, I'm going to go add some white, or sorry, yellow to a few of these patches. Because the next thing I'm about to do is start adding black, I think. We're pretty close to being done, I think, so. So, I would say all of this up there is pretty much done. right? And then now I'm just going to outline the bottom down here. Okay, so again, I am going to use make a purple, and then I'm going to add a little bit of black to it. Rather than just using pure black, I'm going to use, I don't want it to be pure black. Pure black is just not a fun color. We want more energy in that darkness. So this is all a bit tacky now, so it's quite dry. So I need more of each paint in there. So put some warm blue. We need a bit of cool red. And just a little drop of black. Right, so I got my warm blue, cool red, and we'll just have a little drop of black, because I mean, I'm barely going to use any of it, and you'll think I used a lot of it, but it just goes so far. Like, I would say, you know, how we talked last session about, like, what colors have you used the most of, and everyone said the white they've had to replace, or they're pretty close, almost out, and had to replace maybe one of the yellows, or the warm yellow. Well, that black, you can be buried with your black, because you will probably never use all of it. And depending, I mean, obviously, maybe you're making certain kinds of paintings that you want more black in there for whatever reason. But okay, nice dark color. Love it. This is kind of like a really dark eggplant color right now. And it's going to work fine with this. In fact, if anything, it's going to be well integrated with the rest of all those colors. Now, I am going to use a bit of the slow dry medium again to show you. You don't want to put too much in there. If you put a like 2-to-1 slow dry medium, then you're really it's going to become like a glaze, and it gets more and more transparent. So you want that. Look at a 1-to-1 is about as much slow dry medium to paint as you need. That should keep the paint, at least this amount that I've got on here, which now just looks like a big black shape. It'll keep that wet for, I don't know, 10 minutes now. And while I'm here, I'm just going to clean off a bunch of brushes. That gives this extra a little bit of time to dry. Heidi asks, strawberry shortcake. I'm not sure if that was a question from before, when I was asking what we should paint again next. I'm not sure what that is, Heidi. Okay, which brush do I want to use? You know, one of the, it's not a rule, but something I've heard many painters talk about is deliberately using a brush that's just a bit too big for what you need. And I do find if you're using a larger brush, it forces you to work in bigger areas, and rather than getting stuck into the fine little details. Okay, so we're going to bring this color in here. lines of the painting. That one is a little too flimsy. I personally tend to like the square brushes more. So I'm going to use this one here. And then I'm just now going to kind of like look at the picture and kind of think about where I want my lava flows to be. I'm probably going to leave a rim of red right along this edge. So I'm kind of going off on my own here, adding lava flow in whichever direction. I'm letting it flow, right? And I might have to go over top of some of this again, so I'm not going to go... I'm doing things kind of loosely right now, and then I'm going to come back and clean it up. I'm going to do a first pass all the way over. It looks like strawberry shortcake. Yeah, I guess. Okay. Okay, so I've got now everything kind of in where but it needs to be tightened up, and I'm going to get a little bit finer details here. If you made any mistake, if you're using the slow dry medium, you could just wipe some parts away. I'm going to hit it with the blow dryer here in a second. That way I can go back over a second time. Because right now, you see, if I'm trying to add more paint to it, I'm just sort of wiping things away. I don't know if it comes across on the screen very well, but it's either like blow dry it or go have a cup of coffee and come back. Okay, so let's do another pass at the black here. Maybe this time I'm gonna start on this side. And actually I'm gonna move to a smaller brush now to get some of these effects. Let's zoom in on a little bit too close. Let's see if I keep it down. Almost. Okay. I think we're in focus too good. Okay. So I don't want everything to necessarily be nice, dark, sharp outlines. Like some of this area here, I don't mind that, right? Because it'll look like it's glowing a little bit. So if anything, I might not want to go right to the edge of where I'm painting and instead kind of paint. I don't know if you can really see how that works. This is black on black, but how could I demonstrate that? It's almost like on a roll of tape. Let's say this is a black line. Instead of painting edge to edge, I'm kind of painting like this. Does that make any sense? So that way I have this lighter strip of dark that is going to act like a bit of give it that halo-y effect. Right? It makes it look like there's heat kind of inside there trying to burst its way out. Okay. And I am going to go back over this with a little bit of white and yellow again. I think that'll look nice over top of some of this black. It's always a bit of like a back and a forth thing with painting. I think a lot of people, when they start, they want it to just be all forward, but I'm super curious to see how everyone else's paintings turn out from here, or from this one. So far I've been kind of pleasantly surprised with my own execution of this painting. I was like, I've never painted a volcano before. I think I can do it. I don't see why not. Which is why I like the form, you know, having a class like this that also forces me as a teacher to really expand what I'm capable of, you know. So I'm like, okay, I think I would just apply everything I know. I can't see why I can't pull it off. So it's fun having suggestions from other artists in the class who have great ideas like this. So I'm looking forward to more and more of these where you guys surprise me with interesting things. Okay. That's pretty good. I don't have all those little blue, or sorry, not blue, red speckles in here, which are pretty hard to, it's pretty hard to outline all of that. So we're gonna get there in a moment where after I've done this next little step. Just going to go back over all these larger areas with our color. Because down here it should be quite dark, nice and solid. Right, we shouldn't have too many areas of transparency down there. So I would say at this point we're maybe 10 minutes away from being done. Oh, Mike, you can't see what I'm doing over here. Zoom out, Michael. I just zone out into the painting process, and then I look at the camera and be like, whoa, what are we doing here? Forgot I'm on camera. Forgot people are watching me. I'm going to regret saying we're 10 minutes away from being done. Because I'm like, oh, I could do this and that. And so, we'll see, Michael. Okay. Mary Pratt's exploding shortcake. So I mean, this would be. I mean, I think for a lot of people, this is good enough. The only thing I want to just. What I want to do now is because right now we want the lava to be sitting on top of the black, right? So, because it's, right now, it looks like we have kind of cracks in the volcano and we're seeing this through. So we want to now paint overlapping a little bit those lines, which is going to involve us, going to have to require painting a little bit of white even, and then painting red and yellow over top of that, just by necessity. We could try layer and layer and layer of red, but it would just going to take forever because that black is so opaque. So let's see. Oops, let's use brushes. Just sitting here, drying away. Put them in the water to sit for a few minutes. So I'm going to take some white paint. I'm just going to put it right next to my warm red. And I'm going to mix, this is going to be kind of like a very, very like pinkish color. Mostly white. And this won't be the final color. And in fact, before I do that, I'm going to blow dry this black because it's kind of thick in places. Was especially thick, I'm just gonna take my finger. Okay. Okay. So I've got this kind of pinkish red. I didn't even bother putting any medium in it at all because it's going to dilute it a little bit. I don't want it to be diluted. So I'm going to paint this in a few places where I feel like I want the lava to be more distinct. And I can go back over this with red and yellow and even I mean, you could potentially keep some of this just as it is, like with this color, but I think the pink probably isn't going to be as satisfying as putting some yellow and red over top of it. As I said, doing this with this way is much easier than trying to outline everything. You may want to be careful that you don't end up creating little faces, and I mean, if you want, you could certainly do that. There's just always that danger that, you know, if I put a little happy face here. And when we paint some of this yellow over top of it and red, you can really see it glow. You know, I suppose one of the questions you could say is like, well, why even bother? We just spent all this time doing all these black lines. Why not just paint the whole thing black and then go back over it with white? That could work. It could work. I just kind of find that I want it then. I still like the light that seems to be coming through this black right here. I don't want to lose that. That would be the fastest way to do things. But I'm not really, I'm sure you could tell, I'm not particularly concerned with speed. I'm more interested in the final outcome being of a higher quality. You know, if this was like a a game show or something where I had to paint it super, super quick. Even then, unless I had a hairdryer, I would be very careful about just painting a big solid black. And so it's all these little dots of white and everything that I'm putting on here that I think are going to really help this painting. Ultimately, I'm going to cover them with red and other. Can you imagine trying to do all that outlining though with black? You'd lose your mind. It's just, you want the painting to be kind of fun and so again, when I compared it to the Thomas Kincaid painting, you know, we also painted almost over top of a lot of that first wash that was kind of radiating that intensity of light from within the house, similar to what we're doing right now. But it would have been it just would not have had that inner energy kind of coming through, because I think one of the things people forget about painting is we don't just see the top layer of paint. We're seeing through all of these colors, including the black. So, okay, I think that's pretty good. Now I'm gonna blow dry this, and then we'll put reds and yellows and stuff over top of it, and I think we'll be done. So I'm just gonna clean this brush. Irene says, I went off on a real tangent tonight, so mine will have a real different look. I'm super excited to see what that looks like, Irene. Very cool. volume back up. Sorry about that. Okay. So now I'm going to go over select areas with this cool yellow. You'll see now that I've got that color painted, that yellow can glow much brighter. And it starts to look really hot. Do I want to put it everywhere? Probably not. If I can certainly I don't mind overdoing it with the yellow too, because if I don't like it, I can just paint red over top of it, and I think it'll be just fine. That feels hot. I like it. Okay. So now let's put some red in here. We are very close to the end, which is exciting, but it's also a good reminder that this is where all the accidents happen, because we just get so excited about being done that you drop something. All right, so just take a second just to kind of go a little bit, take your time. And also, you don't need to do this red perfect, too. It's okay if I actually overlap a little bit of the black and go a little over the edges, because again, that's going to look like it's radiating some of that heat. May have to, depending on where it is, it may need a second coat of red. Let's see. get this. Oh, this paint is starting to dry on my palette, so it's a little bit hard to mix. I'm just going to kind of doing the edges of the volcano in this red too. Makes it look nice and hot up there. Love it. Love it. Very cool. So I'm just going to look over here and see, is there any places that I've missed before I've completely finished for the day? Sometimes it's good to put a little bit more red back on in some places. You could be inclined to do a little bit of touch-up with the black as well if you needed. But I don't know. I don't know, folks. Let's see. Anything else I can do to this? I think I might be done here. I think that's pretty good. For a couple of hours of painting, I don't think I can complain too much if that's the result. I'm gonna blow dry it just before I sign it. So okay. pen. Make sure I got it right side up. Okay. Hawaii's Kilauea Volcano Erupts. That was fun. Wow, I didn't expect this to turn out the way it did. I would imagine that the sky, the clouds, or the smoke, however you want to, I imagine that would probably be the area that most people would struggle with. If you wanted to simplify it, I think you could probably just get away with painting like a purple background, purple sky, and not worry about trying to do any kind of clouds. You wouldn't, or maybe you could do purple sky with maybe just a little bit of purple, one cloud, and not worry about this other area here. I don't know. I think, and again, down here you could do whatever you want with the lava, and you could, I mean, I certainly went kind of overboard. The original doesn't have quite so much in there, but I kind of got into it, so yeah. Well, that's that feels good for. Let me move my coffee cup out of the way in that shadow. Great. Okay. So thank you everybody for painting along with me again today. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If this is the first time you're stumbling upon this channel, I would love for you to join us again on next Tuesday. This next, what, 4 or 5 days from now, we're going to paint. This is the outline for the Jacob Lawrence painting we're going to do, Strike. It's a baseball sports themed painting of his. And who knows what we're going to paint in the news next week. So usually on their Tuesday classes, I solicit requests from those of you that are painting along with me to help us figure out what we're going to paint next week. So who knows? We don't really know until around Tuesday, Wednesday about what's going to happen. And on Saturday, just a couple days from now, we're going to look at the artwork that you guys have made. So we're going to try to wrap up the entire 45 episode Intro to Painting class and all the paintings you guys have submitted. So if there's a few more that you're still touching up or finishing or haven't taken a photograph of, please do that as soon as possible. Upload them to our Facebook page. Again, if you haven't already done that, here's the, oops. Where is it? It is here. All right, and I'm also asking people to suggest other paintings for our master class series of paints. Let's see what anything else new happens to be on here. Wow, lots of comments. Emily Carr, Georgia. Why does it sound? Georgia O'Keefe. I was looking at some paintings of hers just last night and getting really, really excited. So we are definitely going to do a Georgia O'Keefe painting within the next month, I would say. So I like that idea, Susan. So any more comments, please join the Facebook group. Put your comments in here. Upload your paintings so we can talk about them very, very soon. Okay, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. If you want to make a small or large PayPal donation, there's the link for that right down below. You want to send a check or money order, then contact me through Facebook, Instagram, my website, email. I mean, there's a million different ways. I'm fairly easy to contact. I'm a little bit slow at getting back to people. So my apologies for that. It's just, we've got a lot of things going on in the world right now. So thank you very much. We'll see you again in a couple of days. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. Oh, and yeah, I guess that's it, right? I tend to ramble at the very end, don't I? Okay. Good night, everybody.